Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to a special edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch, where we're going to talk about Standard, and we're going to specifically look at the top 10 cards that have gained value this week in Standard, and talk a little bit about the big event that occurred over the course of the weekend, the first really large event with the new Standard, and that is the Star City Games Open Atlanta. Quickly before we get started though, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support the channel, one of which is our Amazon affiliate store. All the cards we talk about today are available through links in that storefront, as well as many other Magic the Gathering products. Another way to help support us, which is down below too, is our Patreon page. And both are great ways to help us keep doing what we're doing. So thank you to everybody who takes a look at those. All right, having said that, I want to address the elephant in the room first, and that is Mardu Vehicles. Now, if you haven't seen the results from the Open this weekend, Mardu Vehicles did very well. It came in first place, it came in second place, third place, it came in 7th and 8th place. So you had 5 copies of the deck in the top 8 and many other copies scattered throughout the top 64. Still a very, very strong deck. Now, I don't want to read too much into that considering it is only the first week of the new meta, but I would have to think a lot of folks would have been thinking about this deck and thinking of ways to even sideboard against it coming into the new meta, considering it was the biggest deck left from the original meta, and you would have to believe you'd be running into a lot of copies of it. Now, we'll see what happens when players digest this information over the course of the week and we go into week 2. I'm kind of hoping to see more diversity in the format going forward, but right now, I'm at least a little bit concerned about it, but it is a wait and see for me. Now, some of the other decks that performed well, though, we had a Boros Humans deck that came in 4th place that was piloted by Zach Stern, and it was actually a pretty cool deck, running things like Always Watching, Metallic Mimic. You had, of course, your Inspector Clouseaus and your Glory Bound Initiates. Seems like a fun deck that I think a lot of, especially casual players trying to break into Standard, may gravitate to. We had the Return of Delirium in 5th place. Golgari Delirium did very well without Copycat in the way. We had Mono Black Aggro come in 6th place, and that was kind of a variant of some of the Rakdos aggro decks we've seen in past metas. So that deck was a little different, but very similar at the same time. There's also some other interesting decks that made like the top 20, 24. There was a Is It Thermo Alchemist deck coming in 9th. That was basically like a burn deck, but it actually looked pretty awesome. There were a couple awesome zombie tribal builds I was really excited to see because I really felt like that was going to be a deck. But coming in 14th place was Orzhov Zombies. And then a little bit later down the list at 22nd place, there was a mono black version of Zombies as well. There was also some things like Blue Red Emerge that showed up. You had some control decks starting to kind of creep in when you were in the top 15 to 20. You started running into things like Jeskai Control and Azorius Control. So there was some diversity when he went down the list a little bit. It was just Mardu Vehicles was still very, very dominant. So what does this mean for the individual card prices? Well, let's find out, starting with number 10. Pull from Tomorrow, up 71 cents to 301. This had a great showing this weekend in a lot of control decks, Azorius decks, Jeskai control decks. Showed up in some other places too here and there, but overall, I think this is a card that's going to continue to go up in value. $3 feels really cheap at this point for the card. It's a rare. A lot of copies will be opened over time, but I do think this card has potential, especially if control decks can start to grab a larger portion of the meta. Coming in at number 9, Fatal Push, up 76 cents to $6.93. So Fatal Push keeps going up in value. Yes, it's uncommon, and yes, it does appear that it is a uncommon that it's a lot harder to get than most uncommons. So it is probably somewhere in between a rare and an uncommon. But still, even at rare, I'd be impressed for a card from Aether Revolt to get as high as $6, $7 like Fatal Push has. So it really speaks to how great this card is. And of course, some of this is being driven by Modern and other formats too. But this week in Standard, it looked really good. And guess what? Mardu Vehicles decks, not to mention the Golgari decks, bringing it back to some prominence as well in that regard. Coming in at number 8 is Chandra, Torture Defiance, up 79 cents to $21.09. Another card that sees at least some limited play in Mardu Vehicles. Doesn't show up in all builds, sometimes just a sideboard card, but it does see some limited play in those decks. Also on top of that, this was one of the cards that was in that Is It Thermo Alchemist deck that came in 9th place. So it does have some potential to maybe see some more growth if that deck starts to catch on. Coming in at number 7, Cut 2 Ribbons, up $1.43 to $2.30. So here's a card that actually enhanced Mardu vehicles and looked really good in that deck this weekend. Some are running a couple copies in the main, 1 or 2 copies from the board, but the card actually did some work, and it's helping make that deck probably even stronger. That's what's awkward about this. Mardu vehicles actually could lose some games every once in a while to Copycat. Of course, that's out of the format. And now it's given tools to get even better with Cut 2 Ribbons and another card we're going to be looking at in just a few minutes. Coming in number 6, Always Watching, up $1.67 to $5.56. Of course, this was a key part of that Humans deck that came in 4th place. Number 5, Ronos the Indomitable, up $1.79 to $17.55. So this is still going up. I think a lot of this is being driven, though, by either some brewers that are trying to put something together for future weeks or maybe Commander players, because Ronos really didn't do anything this weekend. I was watching for him to show up on camera. Didn't seem to happen. I did see a copy in like a Jund deck that was way down on the list, came in around 60th place or something like that. So not that this card wasn't there at all. It just didn't see a lot of big play in the first week. Coming in at number 4, Crypt Breaker, up $1.93 to $4. As you can imagine, a key part of these zombie tribal decks, whether it be the mono black version or the Orzhov version. Coming in at number 3, Glorybringer, up $2.22 to $10.80. Well, here's the other card that just makes Mardu vehicles that much better. So what I'm worried about with this deck is, even though there's a lot of artifact hate that's been injected into the format, even if that deck loses its Heart of Kirin's, they can still win the game with this, because Glorybringer looked amazing on camera this weekend. This is a card that I think is going to be a standout card of the Pro Tour, and we'll definitely see a spike. It's another card that's a rare, it's not a mythic, and as packs get open, that's going to keep the value in check a little bit. But watch for this one to have some big turbulent weeks in the upcoming month. I really think this is a card that's going to get a lot of spotlight. Coming in number 2, Torrential Gearhulk, up $2.28 to $16.97. A little bit of a bounce back week for the Gearhulk. This is a card that saw a lot of play a couple metas ago in those blue-white flash decks, and then it still had some prominence in control decks last time around, but it started to get a little bit buried under Mardu vehicles and Copycat and all that, although some Copycat decks actually ran this. And this card, though, came back this weekend in a big way in these control decks. So as you can imagine, Jeskai control, Azorius control, love this card. And coming in at number 1, Relentless Dead, up $6.41 to $17.38. Now, this, of course, was a big card in both of those different builds of zombie decks that did well this past weekend. And the thing with some of these tribal decks, like the humans ones, the zombies ones, I think they're easy to understand for new players. They're going to be a entry-level deck if you're just starting to get into Standard, and I think that's definitely a good thing. Because of that, I think a lot of players are trying to pick up these cards this week and probably next week as well, and they may be trying to play this at Friday Night Magic. Now, its overall success, can a deck like this consistently stand up against a Mardu Vehicles build or something like that? Time will tell. We'll know a lot more, I think, next week once we see some more results. And of course, once the Pro Tour occurs, we'll definitely get a better picture of what the meta is going to look like. And then we'll have to wait a few weeks to see if any bannings occur again, which is a little bit awkward. But having said that, those are the cards for today. Hey, until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.